I want to leave you with this. I'll never forget my 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Rice, and what she did for me. When I turned 13 and I started growing like a weed, my father decided that I was getting fat, and he told me I had to be put on a diet. So he instituted a starvation plan that allowed me to eat only what he gave me at 1 a.m. in the morning when he got home from work. Well, my weight was dropping so rapidly that I eventually collapsed in class because I wasn't getting a sack lunch, meal ticket, or school cafeteria. When I came to in class, my teacher was paying attention, Mrs. Rice, and she secretly and personally bought me a meal ticket that allowed me to eat at school for the rest of the year. What Mrs. Rice did by paying attention was to send me the message that I mattered. It is so simple, but I think it is a basic tool that we can all use right now in how we work together as fellow citizens and pay attention by letting others know that they matter. I'd like to leave you with this. For those of you who feel challenged by the many issues you confront in your work or in your life every day, or for those of you who might want to do more and get involved in breaking the cycle of violence in ways that you haven't before, whether professionally, as a volunteer, helping enact legislation at an agency, program, or shelter, as a community leader or a concerned citizen, or even a philanthropist, and you wonder if you can truly make a difference, well, I hope you'll remember my story, because there were those who said that at 15, I was beyond hope, that my path in life was pretty much predetermined by my violent upbringing. But thanks to the courageous, concerned people who stepped in and gave me love and protection and helped me get my self-esteem back, I was able to break the cycle of violence in my life. Know that's what you can do for countless others. I thank you. God bless you, and peace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rivers, for your very moving and inspirational talk to us. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to Victor Rivers, actor, author, and national spokesperson for the National Network to End Domestic Violence. We will return to our speaker in a minute for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate questions for our speaker now, and we remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPN 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Radio broadcasts to the City Club are made possible through the generous support of Case Western Reserve University. Our television broadcast partners are WVIZ, PBS IdeaStream, and Time Warner Cable. Television broadcasts are supported by National City, now a part of PNC, and Cleveland State University. Closed captioning is supported by Nordson Corporation. Our live webcasts are supported by the University of Akron. We are pleased to welcome to our forum today students who are here as part of our City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous contribution to the City Club from the First Energy Foundation. With us today are students from Canton South High School, Shaw High School, and Cleveland School of Architecture and Design. Will our student guests please stand and be recognized? Today's forum is part of the 2009 KeyBank Diversity Thought Leadership Series, which brings speakers of national and global prominence to discuss issues related to diversity in our local, national, and global community. With us today from KeyBank is Richard Estremera, Great Lakes Regional Property Manager, and Margot James Copeland, Executive Vice President, Corporate Diversity and Philanthropy, and Chair, KeyBank Foundation. Mr. Estremera and Ms. Copeland, would you please stand and be recognized for your help in this great program and series. Today is also the Colleen Shaughnessy Leadership Forum, which is held annually in memory of Ms. Colleen Shaughnessy, someone who was very vibrant and special and left us way too early. And it's made possible by gifts from her family and friends. Joining us today are Michael Crystal and Jerry Sheehan, representing all those who contributed to this special fund. Gentlemen, will you please stand and be recognized? Also today, we are pleased to welcome guests at tables hosted by Baker Hostetler, Cleveland Central Catholic High School, Esperanza, the Hispanic Roundtable, Key Bank, Latina, and Lead Diversity. Now, we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today, our City Club Director of Development, Jessica Leary-Allen, and Communications and Outreach Coordinator, Deborah Agasti. Now, the first question, please.
Hello, Mr. Rivers. My name is Andrea Escobar. I'm with Latina. And first, I'd like to thank you for sharing your story. Secondly, over the past 10 years that you've been speaking about domestic violence and how to end it, I'm sure the topic of forgiveness has come up many times. I have a two-part question. One, how do you speak to people about how to forgive? And do you believe it is imperative to forgive?
That's actually a great question, because that question was asked to me by somebody in my family, not an immediate sibling, but someone very, very close in my family, and they're Catholic, and I was told by them that by that person, they said, have you forgiven your father? They said, because if you don't forgive your father, you can't go to heaven. And I thought about that a lot, because that was a pretty profound question to ask me, especially after everything that I'd gone through with my father. And I thought about it a lot. And the next time I went home to Florida, I had my answer, because I thought about it a lot. And I told that person, I said, this is how I forgive my father. I do not allow his behavior in my house, and I teach peace. And that is my forgiveness. And I hope that, if God is who he is, he will understand that. So I think that there's different ways of forgiving. I think it is a very personal thing. And I think ultimately we're probably more readily able to forgive, but I don't think we can ever forget. That's part of who I am today and the person that I become is because of what I experienced. So I won't forget it. Can I forgive it? Well, this is my forgiveness. This is the way I've decided to forgive. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
And speaking about domestic violence today, you certainly set forth some very graphic examples that were very disturbing. Much of this kind of problem is dealt with, I'm sure, on a local level. But you also mentioned how the entire country and its economic woes adds to the prevalence of domestic violence. And my question is, to what extent do you think, on a national level, something can be done which has not been done before or has been done inadequately? And what would you suggest specifically might be done on a national level? The new administration, which is trying out all kinds of new things, to what extent do you think they could be doing things that might help out on a national level?
That's actually, it's a great question. And in the current administration, we have one of the country's greatest domestic violence advocates, and that is now Vice President Joe Biden, who was one of the authors of the Violence Against Women Act. So I think that once they can get to some of these other issues, we will probably start to address that too. But let me tell you about the new solution to an old problem. And that solution is men. You see, most men, and I would gather to say that most of the men in this room are good men. But we tend to stand by silently when we know that our brothers, our uncles, our teammates, our co-workers are committing acts of violence and disrespect towards women. And I'll use the example of a football team, since I'm a former football player. You got 50 guys in the team, and never fails that when I open my sports page to see how my team's doing, I see what, instead of seeing what my team's doing, I read about what athletes have been arrested that week, usually for some form of violence, usually domestic violence or sexual assault. Then I see that same athlete return after a slap on the wrist to a hero's welcome. Well, not only is that an injustice to our society, but it's an injustice to those other 48 guys who are good husbands and fathers, and they give their free time to charitable causes. Here's the problem. The other 48 guys are not standing up and confronting their teammate, not physically, just confronting their teammate and saying that behavior is unacceptable. I'll go with you to get help if you need it. So I think that if there's any kind of a new solution to this problem that could really be effective right now, is if men were to stand up shoulder to shoulder and say this behavior is unacceptable, it would definitely reduce it, because peer group pressure, I believe, is as powerful in adults as it is in children.